Welcome back. Today's job is a service on a Ford Transit 2.4 Smart 7. As you can see, this one's an ice cream van. So this is a Glasgow ice cream van. Glasgow ice cream vans are slightly different from ice cream vans you'll find in other parts of the country and other parts of the world. So this Glasgow ice cream van is more like a mobile shop. Basically it sells all the usual stuff, ice cream, slush, all that kind of stuff, but you can also buy cigarettes, bread, milk, all your daily stuff. So quite interesting, these vans. I like working on them. So like I said, I'm going to pull it in. I don't actually know if I'm going to do it out in the yard there or I'm going to pull it inside. I've got all the junk here, so I'll make a decision and get to work on it. So as you can see, I've just left it outside. It's a nice dry day in Glasgow, so I'm just going to leave it there. The good thing about these transit vans is you don't actually need to jack them up to get to drop the oil and stuff like that. The clearance on these is pretty good, so I'm going to just put a jack underneath it and just raise it up just on one side, just a couple inches, just to give me a wee bit more clearance to put my bucket underneath. So I'm going to go over to the near side with the jack, and like I said, not going to lift it completely off the deck, just an inch or two is fine. As you can see, I've put the jack just underneath the rear wishbone bush there at the back, and I've not lifted the vehicle off the ground, as you can see. But what I have done is just sort of raised it up an inch or two, just to sort of take the weight sort of the suspension on this side, and that gives me a bit of clearance to get my bucket underneath this sort of cross member here. So if I didn't do that, I might struggle to get this bucket. If you had a sort of slightly smaller bucket, you would slide it under there with no problem, but that's what I generally do with these. So the tools you're going to require for this are, so the sump plug on these is a 13mm socket, so ratchet that, and the oil filter is one of the plastic housings on these, so that requires a 27mm socket. A little extension makes it a little bit easier, you'll see why in a wee minute. So before we start draining any oil, first thing you want to do is just remove the cap. The reason for that is you've all done that thing with like a bottle of water and you've tipped it upside down and it goes glug 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 glug. You don't want that to happen. If you take this cap off, it allows the air to replace where the oil used to be, and it makes it flow out the bottom really smoothly and less likely to start splashing all over the place. So just take that cap off, leave it off, and we'll go back underneath the car. So I've slid underneath the car, on the van, sorry, and I'm just looking at the back of it here. This bit here is the drain plug, that's the 13mm we're talking about, and this thing here is the oil filter housing with the 27 on there, which you unscrew. So what I'm going to do is get my bucket, I'm going to position it just about there, just so that comes out nice and smooth. It's going to land in the bucket. So like I said, because I've taken that lid off at the top, when I take this screw out here, the flow should be absolutely perfect and smooth, so it'll be nice and controlled and easy to catch in here. So I'm just going to crack this one off. I'm not going to remove it completely just yet, I'm just going to crack it off and I'll show you a wee trick in a second. So I've cracked that one off, I should be able to get out with my fingers, there we go. So the trick is to try and minimise any spillage all over your hands. So gloves are an essential actually, also is some paper towel. So if you apply pressure on the bolt like that, as you're turning it out, what you're doing is you're kind of pressing it in, you're kind of holding all the oil back. So if you unscrew it like this, putting pressure all the time, and then when you're absolutely confident you're at the end of the thread, you usually start seeing a little drip starting to appear, you pull it away quickly. The oil will just start coming out, but thankfully because we've took that cap off the top, it should flow perfectly smooth and right into your bucket. So as you can see, I pulled that out of the way, didn't get too much on my fingers, which is good, and it's a nice smooth flow of oil all the way into the bucket. So I can just leave that draining and go on the next bit. With that oil's draining off, I'll move up top and go to the air filter, which is over here. So some of you might have a clip like this, some of it might be one of those kind of one-time use type things. The easiest way is if you can remove this pipe, it gives you a bit more space to move about, but if you can't, if it's one of those one-time use and you don't want to sort of have to replace it or anything like that, you can just do it, it's just a little bit more fiddly. So this one has got a clip on there, so I'm going to remove that, so just make my life a little bit easier. So I've loosened off that hose clip, and this is a MAF sensor here, so a little tang at the back, red one, you pull it upwards, and then you should be able to squeeze a little pin and remove it. So put that off to the side just now, take this bit off, move it out of the way a wee bit, and there should be little clips underneath. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, little sort of clamps, lift it up, move it out of the way. Should be two of them, one at this side too, and then it's there. So these ice cream vans are sometimes a little bit fiddly because there's extra hoses and stuff like that. See, like this hose here, for example, is not your standard thing. Lots of other different hoses that you don't really get. The reason for that is because of the sinks and stuff inside them. So now that I've took those clips off, this should lift up and out. And the easiest way I've usually found to get these out is if you twist it this direction, and then you can lift it out like that. Just like that. There we go. So I'll put that aside, and as you can see, there's the air filter. So all we do with this one is remove it, just pull it out. Take a new one, put it in. So any wee dust and crap, get that all out of there. And that should just seat in there, and just make sure it's seated all the way. So this rubber bit sits into a little groove, so just make sure that's in there nicely, and then put the housing back on. The upper part of the casing does this little sort of teeth, two teeth that sit in, so it goes in and then you press it down. So just make sure you locate the back of it, and then you press it down, put those little clips down here back up. So I've taken that clip back up and put the MAF sensor back on. Like I said, you can do it without removing this clip. It just means you've just got a lot more difficult to try and squeeze the filter in through this little gap. So if you can get it off, it makes your life a lot easier. So now that that's more or less drained off, it's just a little drips coming down. I'm going to go for this oil filter. So good idea if you've got a big wide bucket, because what I'm going to do is I'll spin the bucket round so that it sits underneath both the sort of drain hole here and underneath here. This is going to be quite messy when I take this off here, because when I take this off, it's all going to start leaking all over the place. And the design of this engine, you've got this cross member here, so it's inevitable that I'm going to get oil all down this cross member. I need to clean it off. It happens every single time. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reposition the bucket. I'm going to put a 24mm or 27mm socket on there, and I'm going to crack that off and just sort of unscrew it, and obviously just try and catch as much oil as I can. Have some rags ready and gloves, and then hopefully I don't get too messed up. So what I normally do is I've got another little sort of tub here, I put like oil filters and stuff in. So once I do actually remove it, the oil will drain into there, but I'm going to just take the actual filter housing and just stick it in this bucket, this little tub here, and that way I can just let that, whatever's left in the filter and the engine, let that drain in there. And like I said, that just saved me having to hold on to it and minimise any mess. So I'll just get it then. So I've got 27 I think it was on yep, 27 on a little extension. The reason for the little extension is it means you can get round this part of the cross member. As you can see, makes life a little easier. So as you can see, it does get quite messy as it's coming out. So I'm just going to unscrew it by hand, and then I'm going to throw it into this little bucket here and let the rest of it drain into the main big bucket. As you can see, pretty messy. So let that drain off in there a little bit, and I'll transfer it into this little bucket here, and I can clean my hand up. So the van's still draining, all the oil's still dripping out of the filter and the sump at the bottom, so I'll just let that drain. I've took my little box over here, so what I need, first thing I do, I need to separate this. So this thing here just pushes in. I'm going to use two hands and get covered in oil. So I've plenty of paper towel ready. So I'll just pull this paper element out here. There's a little rubber seal on the bottom. Then I need to get a wee screwdriver and put it underneath there. And then get some plenty of paper towel, clean it all up, and then insert the new filter. Just push it until it clicks. But I'll show you what it looks like once it's all assembled. So I've inserted that new filter in there. Like I said, it just kind of clicks there and sort of wobbles about. So I need to put this new seal on this groove. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to just dip my finger in the old oil, and we're going to coat this whole rubber ring with some oil in there. That just makes it means when it's getting screwed in, it's less likely to get a little nick or something on the seal, and hopefully it goes in nice and smooth and doesn't create any oil leaks. So that's what I'm going to do with it. Probably quite hard to see it, but like I said, coated that in oil and put it back in. So this is ready to go back into the car. So that's the oil filter back in, and it says on the cap tighten it to 25 Newton meters. So if you don't know what that is, just use a torque wrench. So there's still little drips coming out of here, but you'll never get absolutely everything out of the sump there. So I'm quite happy that that's all I'm going to get out of it today. So I'm just going to put that sump plug back in and nip it up. At this point, you just kind of give it a little clean up where your spillage is, but this vehicle has had a historic oil leak, so you're never going to get all this off. So I'm quite happy with that. That's nipped up, that's nipped up. I can now start filling it up at the top. Now for the refill. Here's a little tip for you. Rather than using little funnels with little thin necks and stuff like that, what I do is I make recyclable funnels. These are just like a fizzy juice, fizzy pop. In Scotland here we call it ginger. Basically cut the tops off the bottle, stick it in there, and you can see it fits absolutely perfectly. And once you're done with it, you just throw it in the bin. So that also applies to, see, like filling cooling systems. It fits in there lovely. So save messing about with those little dinky ones, just make your own, and it sits in there quite happily. Now, I know that these vehicles take about 6 litres roughly. So what I've done is I've measured out 5 litres. When I put around 5 litres in it and let it sit for a while. The reason for that is it's easier to put it in than it is to take it out. So once I get 5 litres, I should get some sort of register on the dipstick, and then from there I can just sort of top it up. So I'll put 5 litres in it just now and see where that takes me. So I'll put 5 litres in there. I've just checked, there's nothing leaking out the bottom, so that's good. So I'm just going to let that settle, and I'm just going to take my attention to this fuel filter here. You can only like a little gauge here, so you can see where the yellow pin is. If it's in the green, it's actually an okay filter. If it goes down towards the red, then it's potentially blocked. This one actually looks okay, but just as a general part of the service, I'm just going to change it anyway. So this kind of goes in like a bayonet light bulb. You kind of like push it up a wee bit, twist it, and pull it downwards, and then that will come out. The same for putting it back in. You sort of put it upwards, twist it, and it eventually kind of locks into place. But what I've got to do before I put the new one is I've got to fill the new one with diesel. So I'm going to take this one out, get a fresh filter, fill up the filter with diesel right to the brim, and then stick it in, twist it, and that should be that bit done. So that's been replaced. What I did is I filled up this new filter right up to the brim with some fresh diesel, and I just put it in, like I said, goes up, maybe turn it a quarter turn before it gets to there. So basically this logo here, this is why I like these Bosch ones, because I'm very familiar with where the logo sits on here. I've done that many of them. Also the fit's quite good, quite a confident sort of stop click at the end, which sometimes you don't get with other filters. I'm not saying Bosch is the best filter, some people may disagree, but just for me, I think for fitting, I've always found these to be quite easy, in the sense that I know if I look at that straight on, change the camera straight on. If I'm looking straight from the top of the car, basically the B sits right there, and I know that's absolutely perfect. So that's how you would do that. Fill it up, put it in, twist it, and it should sort of click into place. Couldn't really show you it because I needed 2 hands. It is quite stiff, so I need 2 hands to turn it. And the last thing you do is you just basically push this reset button, and that resets that little sort of guide there. So that's the fuel filter done. So what we've got to do, there still will be air in that system. So what we've got to do is start the engine, and basically what I do is I start it, rev it to go to about 2000 revs, hold it there for about 10 minutes. No, not quite even 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And then if it doesn't cut out, then I just let it idle for another couple of minutes, and that's it, perfect. So that's that fuel filter been changed. I've topped up the oil. What I've done is I started the engine, and I kind of held the rev for about 2000 revs, did that for a couple of minutes, and let it idle, and stopped it, checked for leaks, and re-topped up to the oil. Because what happens is the oil filter's got to fill up So sometimes you set the level and it will drop down a little bit after it's been stocked. So that's how you service a Mark 7 Transit. So if you like what you see, give us a little subscribe, comment, like, do all that good stuff that people do. But if you want to see more of these ice cream vans, just drop us a little comment. I'm sure somebody out there will want to see the inner workings of these things. But till next time, I'll catch you later.